pretty big news coming out of the timeline today, guys. Coinbase just announced that they're leaving the Optimism Superchain. They've effectively paid, from what I understand, about $20 to $40 million worth of ETH back to the Superchain over the past 2+ years it was a part of that, which is about 15% of the revenue that it made. And a lot of people have been asking for a long time, like, yo, when are they going to leave? Like, if you remember, like over a year ago, even crypto Twitter for a long time was saying these guys make up roughly, I think today, like 94% of all the revenue that the Superchain generates. Or I think it might have been 94% of all the activity or something like that. And it's pretty clear that Base was the Superchain for a long time. And I will say it's very gratifying, I think, to finally see this happen as someone on the other side of the spectrum, right? For a long time, it was Optimism versus Arbitrum, going back to back with the OP stack versus Arbitrum Orbit and the chain stacks and all that. And man, if you would have asked anyone for a long time, they would have told you Optimism was winning because, for better or for worse, they were getting all these different deals. And for the most part, people pointed to Coinbase as their cash cow. Meanwhile, OP Mainnet, their main chain, really was, not relevant at all compared to Coinbase's chain. Fast forward to today, you have Coinbase leaving. I think at this point, Optimism's biggest chain at this point would be either CeeLo or World Chain. Meanwhile, Arbitrum is onboarding Robinhood. Robinhood just hit testnet last week. And the difference, for those of you who may not know, is that the problem with the Superchain is that there was never a source of keeping people kind of locked into it. Which, as in, like, there was this loose agreement of being part of the Superchain where you pay 15% of your sequencer fees back to the the collective, and the governance would be owned by Optimism at the end of the day. Now, I think most people assume that Base left because they were paying all this money back to the collective, and it didn't make sense. Mind you, Base also got a lot of money, of course, from whatever deal they struck with Optimism from the beginning. So there was that. But the main reason why, my understanding, is because they wanted control over their own chain. They didn't want to be held under the governance and standards of the collective or whatever the Superchain deems makes sense. And as a company that's running a business, it needs to prioritize itself and the speed at which it needs to conduct its products and ship things. It kind of makes sense that they need to go their own path. And we've been saying that for a long time, at least at Offchain Labs, obviously building Arbitrum. Again, this video is just my take on this stuff, my opinion, but I will say that we've been saying that for a long time since we've launched it because that's been our kind of motto. And it's just so funny, by the way, all this stuff happening, that now you see Optimism essentially pivoting towards what Arbitrum is and has been for a long time, which is these kind of, your chain, your rules mindset where you can build an Arbitrum chain on an L2, you can build it as an L3, you can have your own custom gas token, you can make it yours, it's your chain, it's your rules, it's your governance. If you want it, if you want a custom gas token, you can have that. I'm not trying to sell you on this, I'm just saying that, like, these guys are literally now moving over to this side because they're realizing, holy shit, what we were doing for a long time never made sense monetarily. Like, it worked for a little while, it got a lot of vibes on crypto Twitter, but it never worked. Like, long term, it was never a business strategy. So I don't know. It's just something that I find interesting. And obviously, I have no ill will towards the OP or Optimism team. A lot of that maybe back in the day I did, but nowadays, like, it is what it is. I'm sure they'll be able to figure their way out of it. Again, like I said, I to be honest with you, I think they're kind of copying our playbook at this point. That's just my personal opinion. But so let them. To be honest with you, at this point, I have a horse in this race, but I do think that with Base leaving the Superchain, I think there at least very little competition, to be honest, with the whole, like, platform wars. I guess there really never was any competition with that. As in, like, Arbitrum is able to offer Arbitrum 1 as an enormous chain, bigger than Base and by some metrics. And obviously, Arbitrum chain stack is like a product which Robinhood, for example, is using. So I think it's a very bullish signal for Arbitrum personally, no financial advice. But I do think we'll need to see how it plays out. They haven't left yet. I think the blog post is just them signaling that they wanted to leave soon. They'll probably in the coming months, I would assume. And you can also probably assume that the Base token is probably going to come at some point as well, because they did hint at some decentralizing and stuff like that on the roadmap. But it's an interesting time, man. And people are saying, are they going to be in L2 and L1? I think they're still going to be in L2. I'm pretty sure. The problem with being in L1, again, as you may have not seen any videos where I talk about it, but being in L1 is too expensive. Being in L2 makes more sense because you can capture most of the revenue versus paying out, validators or whatever in your own native token via inflation. So it's very likely they'll stay in L2 just because they can capture more revenue that way. But let's see. What do you guys think? Did you guys see that on the timeline? They must have announced that at ETH Denver because I've been here at home. Usually I go to ETH Denver every year, but I didn't go this year. But just I don't know. It's a news that I've been waiting to hear for a long time, and I really hope that this kind of pushes people to realize that like the L2s that make sense, the L2 stack, the primitives, the platforms that make sense will continue to thrive and succeed. The ones that don't make any business sense will not. And I say that as many more teams start to unfortunately wind down. Again, I'm not trying to cheer that on. Optimism isn't winding down, so I'm not cheering that on either. But it's a really hard market right now, like really, really tough. So shout outs to everyone working in the industry. Shout outs to Coinbase. Shout outs to Optimism. Shout outs to everyone in crypto, your Arbitrum community. Let's see what happens, man. I think it's going to be a good year for Arbitrum. Let's see. See you guys in the next one.